Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic? Let's do it. Have any of you experienced a home break-in or a mugging and retaliated? What happened? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When I was in graduate school, the neighborhood I lived in deteriorated significantly. During the summer, I noticed items missing from my back porch, indicating that thieves were targeting my property. Working against me was the fact that I lived alone and was a deep sleeper. Working for me was the fact that I was in pretty excellent shape and kept odd hours. Not having enough money to buy a gun, I sharpened my axe, painted it black, and started keeping my axe inside with me. Sure enough, one night I'm up reading, and I hear steps on the porch. I turn to see a man peering through the back door window. I'm in my boxers. I grabbed the axe, ran up to the window and screamed, brandishing it. The guy jumped, literally fell down the stairs backwards, popped back up and started running off down my driveway. I gave chase, screaming wordlessly, for about 20 feet, not wanting to leave my door open and unguarded since I don't know how many more thieves are about. I never had any more problems with living there. 3 years ago when I was 22, I was living by myself in a terrible part of town. I lived in a little one-bedroom cottage. The front door opened up into the dividing area between the kitchen and living room. One morning I was cooking some bacon and eggs, and someone kicked the door in. The stove was near the door, so when the door flew open with a long bang, I panicked and grabbed the frying pan and bitch-slapped the 18 to 19-year-old kid with it. Not only did I knock him out, but he also got third-degree burns across part of his face, arm, and torso from the bacon grease that came from the pan. Sadly, I had no more bacon and had to go to McDonald's for my breakfast. In college, a guy asked me for my wallet and was trying to mug me. Although I realized I was stupid, I feigned complete naivete and said I had my wallet and money for him back at my dorm and would really like to give it to him to help him out. He walked me back to my dorm. I went inside, called the police, and they arrested him while he was waiting outside for me. The guy had been a nuisance, robbing numerous students, and he was unaware that my wallet had been in my back pocket the entire time. This is as close as it gets for me. I had just rented this house near the downtown area. I moved in the day after the landlords moved out. I was there for a whole week when I heard someone jump the fence in the backyard, walk up to my window, my room was at the back of the house, and start to stick a knife under the window across the room. I knew I had time to have some fun because they had painted the windows shut and closed the blinds. I slowly stood up as quietly as possible and made my way over to my Mossberg 12 gauge. I picked it up and made my way over to the window silently. I then stood right in front of it and pumped the shotgun as dramatically as I could. The man yanked the bread knife from under the window, fell over in my garden, and then scrambled across the yard with a fire under his ass. He nearly killed himself while attempting to obscene the fence. I laughed heartily and returned to my bed. It wasn't me, but a friend. He was jumped on his front porch as he was leaving his house. He had a gun to his head, and in what I believe to be one of the dumbest things he could have done, he whipped his hand up and smacked the gun to the side. It was a scene straight out of a movie. Unlike in the movies, the mugger fired the gun almost immediately. Fortunately, by the time the gun was slightly past his head, he lost hearing in one ear, but he did manage to subdue the mugger. I do not advise attempting that, ever. My parents, in their late 50s, had a crackhead break into their house while they were home. They had just stepped outside. The dude saw the opportunity, ran in the other door, grabbed a bag of whatever he could get his hands on, and then bolted. He tried to jump the fence to escape, but my dad caught him, hauled him off, punched him in the face, and then held him there with the help of some neighbors until the cops came. They recovered all of the stolen property. Now they're a lot more cautious about locking their doors. Back when I was in high school, I had an incident where a guy tried to jump me from my bike. I was biking home from a friend's house around 10 p.m. when this guy jumped in front of me and demanded my bike and money, claiming he had a knife. I just yelled, "Hey, this guy's trying to rob me." About 20 people who were smoking outside a bowling alley across the street turned away. The would-be mugger took off. I had a fake gun in my pocket at the time. We'd been making a short film at my friend's house and was tempted to pull it out, but if the mugger actually had a knife, things might have escalated from there. You'll always have to battle against the fight or flight response, and then if someone wants your wallet, is it worth it to give it up? Is there an immediate threat on your well-being or your life or the people around you? Or you just give up that little thing and hopefully move on with your life. It's a battle and there's no right answer, but there are, long-term consequences to either choice, possibly. So, I don't know. I was riding home on my longboard really late one night when I noticed 3 guys following me on bikes. One rides up next to me and tells me to empty my pockets. I laugh and continue riding. He drops his bike and immediately I kick up my longboard into my hands. Now I'm in the middle of the street wielding this 1-meter board like a sword in 2 hands, telling him to try something. Sure enough, he runs at me. I crack him in the face with my board and he drops. His friends stay back. I rode away and that was that. Many, many years ago, I caught some punk teenager in my grandparents' cabin. I was still a teenager myself. I was furious. I grabbed the guy, dragged him outside, grabbed him by the shirt collar, and started smashing my forehead into his face over and over again. There was a lot of blood. I finally let the guy go, and he took off as fast as he could. I remember being so angry that my arms wanted to punch him, but were too tense. I never saw him again. Living in a shitty basement studio apartment, I had just gotten in from work at around 4 a.m. A buddy of mine owned a car repo company, and I was working with him nights for the extra cash. I had just sat down on the couch to decompress after walking in the front door, and I hadn't even turned on the lights, only the TV. I had just put my phone, pager, wallet, and gun on the coffee table when I heard a loud thumping on the back door. Later I would learn this gentleman was trying to use a brick to smash the glass on the door. In short order, he realized this wasn't working, so he sat on the steps and used his feet to push the entire door frame out of the wall. At this point, I knew someone was trying to break in. I figured there was not enough time to dial 911, and it simply never occurred to me to go out the front door, so I grabbed my gun, .45 caliber 1911, and waited. I yelled for the would-be burglar to freeze and put his hands on his head when he came around the corner inside 15 feet. He hesitated for a moment, and I was fairly certain I was about to take a life. Fortunately, he realized he had no options and complied. I had him lie down on the floor and called 911. I held him at gunpoint for about 5 minutes until the cops arrived. The creepiest part is that he never said a word. Not even when I went to court to testify did I ever hear him speak. On September 27, 2009, I pulled into my driveway with my wife and kids. It was about 8 p.m. and we had just finished a wonderful weekend working at the Renaissance Festival. My mother, aged 76, lives with us. She was standing on the back porch on her cell phone. I speculated that she might have misplaced her keys and found herself trapped outside. I jumped out of the car and walked up toward the house and asked her why she was outside. She said there's a man in the house, with the kind of panic that chills you to the bone. My mom had just let the dogs back indoors and forgot to lock the door. He simply entered, made his way to the refrigerator, and passed by my mom's bedroom, where she was engrossed in watching the football game. She thought it was my son or one of the other gypsies from the Ren Fair with him. She went into the kitchen and saw a strange man. He expressed his hunger, to which she responded, "There's a pan full of sandwiches right there in the cupboard. I just got back from a funeral." My mom's funny. There's a burglar, so she gives him food. She tells him she's going out on the porch for some fresh air, grabs her cell and walks outside. I pulled up a few minutes later while she was on the phone with 911. I looked into the security window in the back door. A skinny individual who was not wearing a shirt was present, which I had never observed before. He was not armed in any way, so I grabbed the most handy-looking weapon I could find, a broken shovel. I wanted this guy out of my house. My mother was already talking to 911. I told my wife to call too, to make sure my mother told them our proper address and such. I shoved the back door open and held the shovel over my head and yelled at the guy to lie down on the ground and I wouldn't hurt him. He nearly broke down in tears, telling me that he was a good Christian, that he was hungry, and that I should not hurt him, among other incoherent ramblings. I told him the police were already on their way and that he needed to stay where he was. I honestly did not want to get into a physical altercation with the guy. I really just wanted him out of my house. He did not actually lie down, but was very submissive to me. He took a couple of steps toward the door and I let him. He started outside and I realized he was quite literally running straight at my mother. I don't think he saw her, but I didn't want to chance it. So I tackled him and threw him to the ground and jumped on top of him, putting him into a headlock. He did try to get away, but he did not put up much of a struggle. I eventually got him in a better hold. He did grab my chemise, the large white undershirt for my Ren Fair costume, and tried to yank on it. I applied some extra pressure and told him that if he ripped my shirt, I would beat him until the cops arrived. I made the shirt from expensive linen, which required a lot of work. I told him several times to just relax and wait until the cops arrived. I really tried not to hurt him. I outweighed him by probably 75 or more, was 5 inches taller than him, and I'm 15 years younger. The cops arrived, lights, sirens, screeching tires, and took him into custody. He was a career criminal and was deemed armed and dangerous. One of the official inquiries, "Are you a pirate or something?" It was then I realized I was wearing knee-length boots, blue and red tights, and a large white shirt with a fancy cuff and collar. My mustache was wax and a handlebar with curls, and my hair was in a ponytail. I looked like a pirate. The poor criminal was caught in the crossfire. A giant, noisy pirate wielding a broken shovel attacked him. No wonder he was so submissive. I probably terrified him. Crazy story. Yes, and it was being awesome. I was taking a walk around the block at around 9 p.m. and talking on the phone with my fiancée. I was living in Central Square, Cambridge, Massachusetts, a slightly shady area at night. All of a sudden, I was surrounded by 3 teenage males, one of whom flashed a switchblade and said, "Let me check out your phone." So I hand them the phone, and they turn and run. Without thinking, read stupidly, I chased after them. As I'm running, I start yelling and pointing. "Those stole my phone." A random stranger, walking out of the YMCA, joins me in the chase, pulls out his phone and calls 911. In the meantime, we almost catch up to them, and once in earshot, I keep yelling louder and louder. I guess they got nervous, and they stepped and turned around. "I guess we should give him back his phone," one of them says to the other. So one of them walks slowly toward me, arms extended, hands shaking, and hands the phone back to me. It's important to note that I have been practicing judo for 3 years. So I grab his wrist, and my co-defendant tackles this to the ground. The other 2 scatter off, but less than 2 minutes later, the cops arrive and arrest the one that was tucked safely under our knees. Upon concluding the night, we begin our journey home, discovering that this individual shared the same apartment complex as myself. An hour later, the cops call me and ask if I'm able to ID the other 2. Apparently, they had jumped on the red line in an attempt to flee the area, but the cops stopped the train and pulled off anyone fitting the description. So the cops pick me up, and from the back of the cop car, they do an on-street lineup outside the Wendy's in Central Square. I successfully identified the other 2 individuals, and they escorted me back home. Finally, I go to court to testify about the incident. Most importantly, I bought and shared quite a few drinks for the guy who helped me catch those gers. My mom was driving in her car, and where we lived, third world country, it's quite common for the following scenario to take place when you're stopped at a red light, traffic, what have you. The man walks up to the passenger side window, taps and points to the tire to indicate you have a leak, a flat, etc. While you're distracted, his accomplice will reach in or break a window to grab whatever valuables are in open sight, and both men will run off. Safe in the assumption that you will not leave your car to chase them down and can't drive off due to a red light or traffic. This exact scenario unfolds for my mom, as she senses the accomplice's hand reaching for her watch. Instinctively, she seizes his hand and drives her teeth deep into his arm, drawing blood. The accomplice panics, whips his arm back out, and both men flee. Now, once she got home, she reached down by her seat for the trunk opening button and found the robber's watch, which she had accidentally ripped off his arm. I guess it's the same as previous stories, but my encounter goes as follows. I was in grade 12 walking home from my bud's house through the ravine. As I approached a bridge, I saw two looking fellows chilling in the middle of the bridge, younger than me, I believe. Guy 1 was a few inches shorter and Guy 2 was my height, but a bit lankier. He asked me if I had a light, classic mugging line, I soon realized, and at the time I got kind of high and in a positive mood. So I pulled out my lighter, and he leaned forward so I could light a cigarette. As soon as I sparked the flame, Guy 1 sucker punched me in the side of the face, and I dropped. Both started to kick me back while I protected my head and told myself to watch off while they reached for my wallet. Despite not being a fighter, my bravery suddenly emerged as I turned out my back, sat on Guy 1's hands, and delivered a powerful kick to Guy number 2. Guy 2 dropped to one knee, and I pounced on him, bringing him to the ground with me, which was a part error, and my ribs were bruised. Here is where shit got real. I didn't know what to do. I was not confident in punching him out of the ground, so I viciously rubbed my pain in his face, then slipped some fingers into his mouth, and began to yank off his cheek, a fishhook. And as he turned, exposing his back, I had side control at this point, and I kneed him right in the side of the head. Guy 1 began to punch me in the back of the head while straddling my back. I threw my back and elbow connected with his head, but not too clean. Just enough so that he can get off him. Guy 2 rose and began to flee. I stood up, believing that I should pursue him, but I soon realized that I did not wish to pursue him. Guy 1 got up, and he looks raging. He stepped toward and delivered another punch, catching me off guard before I could react. He then positioned himself on top of me and began to deliver more punches. I flipped him off of me and got onto his back and put him in a chokehold. I successfully choked him to unconsciousness, causing him to convulse, a terrifying experience that left me facing fear for his life. I'm going to read the last paragraph starting from I flipped him off of me. I flipped him off of me, got onto his back, and put him in a chokehold. I successfully choked him to unconsciousness, causing him to convulse, a terrifying experience that left me fearing for his life. While he was limp, I looked for my wallet and saw it in the creek below the bridge. So I took his wallet out and threw it in the creek. It had my mommy, or I would have taken it as payback. I think the wallet out of the fire creek and stumbled home in tears. I was once walking home from a friend's house in the same town that I live in. There's a shortcut that I normally take while walking home from this particular friend's house, a long winding dirt road in between a golf course and a high school football field. It's creepy as all hell, but it makes my commute about half as long. The town I'm from is not known for much violent behavior, and I had made the walk several hundred times in my life. This night in particular was a bit different. A man and his friend in their early 30s, drunks or drunkies, either one, were drinking in the middle of the path, the darkest part. I noticed the men, but figured they were just trying to have a good time. I put my head down and kept walking. As I got closer, they started trying to get me to come over to them, obviously. I ignored their request. They didn't like that. One of them ran over to me and spun me around. I realize I'm in trouble because running wasn't an option due to the rough terrain and a little light. Realistically, they probably could have caught me anyway. The man who grabbed me was screaming at me to give his money, a phone, a wallet, so forth. His friend ran up beside him and struck me squarely in the jaw, knocking me down but not unconscious. I pretended to be unconscious and prayed for the best outcome. They rummaged through my pockets and took my phone and the $6 I had on me. I was waiting for them to leave, but they didn't. I heard them discussing what to do before sleeping. Hit me a few more times. They actually joked about killing me. I was lying on my side, leaning up against the fence, bleeding from the face. I could feel the warm blood pooling on my shirt. They were standing over me. One of them started kicking me in the leg repeatedly, harder and harder. I carry a knife on me that is disguised as a belt buckle. I only use it for work and figured this may be the best time to use it for what it was meant for. I had thought about it for what seemed like an hour, but was probably only 10 seconds. I slid the knife out and in rapid succession stabbed each man in their upper thigh. I sunk the blade the entire length, each time about 4 inches. They both hit the ground in pain after trying to run. I kicked one of the men in the head while he was down and knocked him out cold. Not my intent. I was just pissed. I wanted my phone back, so I patted him down and found it and took it back. The other fellow was screaming, "Stop, stop," and threw my $6 on the ground. I didn't even take it and booked it home. I was so scared that I had actually stabbed 2 people with a potentially illegal weapon, and I was just so afraid that the judicial system may end up getting me over that I never went to the police and never heard anything more about it either. There are individuals who are beyond redemption. Looking back, I realize I should have been hurt the other man even more, and it still gives me nightmares and anxiety to this day. Hurt only those who hurt you, or attempt to hurt you. Otherwise, get the f*** out. You won't regret it. I had just started a new school. I was about 13 or 14. The school was in a pretty lovely neighborhood, and so was my house. Despite the niceness, there sometimes were thugs and such that came mostly from the asylum, where different sort of immigrants applied for residence permits and whatnot. This is Norway, mind you. When I was younger, I was bullied, and it somehow led to me having an attitude of not taking shit from anyone. One day, 3 older Pakistani kids stopped me and a couple of friends as we were walking home from the school. They were about 20-something. We were somewhat familiar with their tactics. They were attempting to project a sense of superiority while simultaneously demeaning us. Their leader noticed that I wouldn't cower or bend particularly much to them. Well, so he singled me out. He took a knife to my throat and pressed it to my Adam's apple. I remember the knife being blunt and scraping at my throat. He then asked me to give him my jacket. Despite my friends being affluent, I didn't share their wealth, and I had a deep affection for my jacket, which was the most expensive and elegant item in my limited wardrobe. So I said no. The following conversation went something like this. "No, you can't have my jacket." "What did you say, you little shit? Can't you see the knife? Give me the jacket or I'll slit your throat." That sounds like a fantastic idea. Killing a child for a jacket. Imagine slitting the throat of a boy and facing lifelong imprisonment simply for the sake of obtaining a jacket. Do you have any idea how much blood there will be? Are you really going to do that? I was sure he could feel my pulse from his hands on my throat, but he backed off. He looked and stupidly at me and just walked away silently with his buddies. I was sort of in shock, but glad I acted cool and got to keep my jacket. Candy and PlayStation replaced our homework plans that evening. I worked at a small printing company. The back door, made of wood, was heavy and difficult to open and close in humid conditions, requiring me to exert my entire body weight to tug or push it repeatedly. As a result, I would often leave it unlocked during my shift. One night after closing, I had the lights off, and I was finishing a couple of things on the computer. I heard someone trying to open the unlocked back door and didn't really think anything of it. I thought perhaps it was the landlord. I shouted, "Hello," a few times, but I didn't hear a response. Still unsuspecting, I walked to the back door to see who was there, just as the guy finally got the door to open. He had a shirt tied around his nose and mouth to conceal his face. In shock, I asked him what the hell he wanted. He didn't say anything. I told him to leave. Nothing. I placed my hands on my hips and commanded him to leave. Still nothing. I threatened that I would attack him if he didn't leave. Still nothing. By then I'm really frustrated and just want him to go. This has got to be the most awkward attempted burglary ever. I assume my fighting stance in an attempt to intimidate him, but he remains unflinching. I kick him in the groin, but I guess I only got his baggy jeans. I guess it didn't hurt. I was so disappointed right then. I just kind of stood there in shock, and so did he. I tell him once again to leave, and he finally says, "Give me the money." Finally, I decide to flee, seek help, and dash out the front door. Came back in less than 2 minutes with help, and he was gone. Didn't get anything. My friend is a certified self-defense instructor. At a gas station, he fell victim to a knife-point mugger. After my friend opened the car door, still seated, the mugger approached the car from the front, sticking his arm between the door and the car in the V-shaped opening created when you open the front door. My friend grabbed the guy's hand with the knife still in his fist, with the right hand, grabbed the door with his left hand and slammed the door shut in the mugger's arm. Then my friend proceeded to twist the mugger's arm the wrong way, effectively breaking it. All of this happened so fast, the mugger never saw it coming. As the police and ambulance arrived, he asked my friend, "How did you do that?" My friend responded, "I'm a government-registered weapon. Badass."